We live in a world where technology is just constantly rewriting the rules. So how do you even begin to plan for a future that sounds more like science fiction than tomorrow? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down some amazing tools that can help us all get ready for whatever's coming next.
Okay, so put yourself in this situation. Imagine you're a city planner in Dallas, Texas. You look up and you're not just thinking about traffic on the ground, you're being asked to plan for flying taxis. Yeah, flying taxis, buzzing between skyscrapers. I'm not kidding, this wasn't a movie scene, it was a real challenge for them. And it forces you to ask this giant question, how do you possibly prepare for a world that doesn't even exist yet?
And this quote from the mayor of Dallas just nails the core problem, right? It's all about deep uncertainty. Nobody really knows for sure how these things will pan out. So the city couldn't just bet everything on one outcome. They had to be ready for a future with flying cars, sure, but also for a future where that idea just never takes off, and maybe they need to invest in high-speed rail instead. They had to plan for a range of possibilities, not just one single prediction.
And that idea right there leads us to a really crucial shift in how we think. It's not about trying to predict the future, with some kind of crystal ball. It's all about preparing for whatever the future might throw at us.
This brings us to a really important distinction. On one side, you have traditional forecasting. That's where you look at past data to try and predict one single future. But on the other side, you've got strategic foresight. And foresight isn't about getting one answer right. It's about imagining several different, totally plausible futures so you can be proactive and ready for change, not just reacting to it after it's already happened.
The futurist Paul Saffo just put it perfectly. The whole point isn't to be a psychic. It's to explore the future to make smarter, more resilient decisions right now, today. It's this huge mental shift from trying to be right to trying to be ready.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we get ready? Well, it turns out there's a really powerful toolkit for this stuff. And today, we're going to dig into 3 of the most effective methods out there for anticipating the impact of new technologies.
All right, let's jump in with our first tool, scenario planning. The best way to think about this is like rehearsing for futures that haven't happened yet. That way, when something big happens, you're not totally caught off guard.
So, scenario planning is basically like a flight simulator for business strategy. You know how a pilot uses a simulator to practice handling all sorts of crazy situations before they ever get in a real plane? Well, it's the same idea. Organizations use scenario planning to explore a bunch of different what-if worlds, so they can develop strategies that are tough and flexible no matter which future actually comes to pass.
The process usually breaks down into 4 phases. First, you start with a situation analysis to figure out the key drivers of change. Things like new tech, regulations, or big social shifts. Then, you project how those forces might evolve. From there, you mix and match them to build a few distinct scenarios, basically different stories about how the future could look. And finally, you look at the implications of each story to figure out, okay, what should we do today?
And this isn't just theory. This stuff works. Back in the 1960s, Royal Dutch Shell used scenario planning to imagine futures that were completely different from the norm. One of their scenarios was about a world where oil-producing nations suddenly cut off the supply. Well, guess what? When the 1973 oil crisis actually hit, Shell was one of the only major companies that had already rehearsed for that unthinkable event. They responded way faster and smarter than their competitors, giving them a massive strategic edge.
So while scenario planning helps us imagine different worlds, our second tool, trend analysis, is all about grounding those possibilities in cold, hard data. It gives us a more quantitative look at where we might be heading.
Trend analysis is really about putting numbers to the direction of change. It helps us answer questions like, how fast is computing power actually getting? How quickly are the costs of solar panels dropping? By spotting these patterns, we can draw a line forward to get a baseline for what to expect.
And the most famous example of this is, of course, Moore's Law. Back in 1965, Gordon Moore noticed that the number of transistors you could fit on a chip was doubling roughly every 2 years. That observation became a trend, and that trend literally became the roadmap for the entire tech industry, driving decades of insane growth. But as you can see, that trend is now slowing down.
Which is a perfect reminder that trends aren't destiny. They kind of assume the future is just going to be a straight line from the past. But what happens when something massive and unexpected comes along? For years, ride-sharing was on a steady climb. Then the pandemic hit, and that trend line didn't just bend, it completely broke. And that's exactly why trend analysis by itself isn't enough.
So to understand why trends break and how we can see the bigger picture, we need our third and final tool,
systems thinking. This one helps us see the wider, often hidden, impacts of any new technology.
Systems thinking asks us to zoom way out. So instead of looking at a new piece of tech in a vacuum, we look at the entire ecosystem it lives in. It helps us see all the cascading effects, the second and third order consequences, the ripples an innovation sends out across society, the economy, you name it.
Let's take autonomous vehicles. A narrow view might just focus on safety, but a systems view shows us this whole web of connections. How will they impact public transit? Could they make urban sprawl even worse? Can our electric grid even handle millions of cars plugging in? What happens to all the jobs in the trucking industry? Systems thinking forces us to ask these really tough, interconnected questions.
So how do we pull all these tools together? Well, the goal here isn't to just sit back and watch the future happen to us. It's about using this toolkit to really understand what's going on so we can actively work to shape a better outcome.
So think of it like this. Trend analysis asks, where are we heading? To give us that data-driven baseline, our most probable path. Then scenario planning comes in and asks, yeah, but what if? To get us ready for when that path inevitably twists and turns. And finally, systems thinking asks, what are the ripple effects? Which helps us see the hidden forces that could cause those twists and turns in the first place. You see? Put them together and you have a really powerful framework for dealing with uncertainty.
And here's the most important part. This way of thinking isn't just for big-shot CEOs or city planners. These are tools that you can use in your own career, in your community, in your life, to think more strategically about the incredible changes happening all around us.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. Pick a technology that you're fascinated by. Could be AI, gene editing, whatever. Based on the trends, what do you think is its probable future? But here's the bigger question. What is your preferred future for it? And what small actions can you take, starting today, to help close the gap between the two?